freedom, and we have a freedom to worship, and we are in a comfy zone. And when it comes to following God's commandments, we might it might mean that I have to come out from my comfort zone, or I might lose some friends or something like that. Sometimes it's hard to follow God's commandments, but that is our motivation, especially when we become Christians. If we love God, we would want to tell the hope that lies within you. And it also would give glory to God about what God does in your life and what He will do to every single person who is saved. Two quotes that I've thought of when I was going through this is the emphasis of duty about this. They emphasize a lot on duty. Hudson Taylor, a missionary for China, said this: "The Great Commission is not an option to be considered, it is a command to be obeyed." Martin Luther also said that it is the duty of every Christian to be Christ to his neighbor. There's an emphasis of, as Christians, we have that call to go and share the gospel. And the second motivation was that we love other people, and that, I guess, it's easier to get motivated by that than motivating to follow God's commandment. But here's something for you to really consider. 10 out of 10 people die. That's I guess that's a pretty obvious statistic. I think everyone knows that. But here's another one. About 150,000 people die each day. I know Mark Cahill, those of you who know who Mark Cahill is, when he does his presentation, he starts off with snapping his fingers like per second, say, every snap, a person dies. And another thing, that's another statistic, that's about 2 people per second. And here's the big thing. We do not know when anyone is going to die, no matter if it's a Christian or a non-Christian. So it's not just whether we know if our friends are going to die someday soon, or whether we know if we would have another day tomorrow. I've recently seen a video, like an interview with a Christian, when talking about evangelizing to someone. He's like, "Oh yeah, it's really hard to share the gospel to someone, and I try to just be there for him and just being able to show Christ's love for him and stuff like that." But when asked the question about whether that person, if you know that he was going to die tomorrow, what would you do? She said, "Oh, definitely, I would really share the gospel to that person." And relates back to her own experience, because she had a friend recently who died all of a sudden without any warning. And obviously no one knew that that day was his day of death. But thanks to God that he is a Christian. And just to think about that to our own friends or our neighbors or our co-workers or teachers, or maybe someone in our hometown that we know, we don't really know when they're going to die. We really don't. And with us knowing that if you die without Christ, you would not be with God, that should alarm us to want to go to them and actually tell them, "Hey, I know that you might not want to hear this, you might not want to see it, but I really do care about you, and I really want to tell you something. And if you could throw it out if you don't want to, but I really want to tell you because I care about you." If you care about someone, you would tell them the hope that lies within you. we talked about like these motivations. D.T. Niles, I thought this quote was pretty interesting. Evangelism is just one beggar telling another beggar where to find bread. Which all of us, we're all saved as Christians, and evangelism is not really telling them, oh, I know the truth and you don't, or something like that. No, it's like, I have something that would have you in a right relationship with God, and I want to tell you about that, and then just kind of lead them to Christ. And sometimes talking about these two motivations kind of convicts you, because there are times when we would rather have something else to motivate us. If I say to you that for every person that you share the gospel to, I will give you $100, how many times would you share the gospel? Would you share more? Would you share less? This is actually a video of actually people getting interviewed for that exact question.
Here's a challenge. If I said, I'll pay you $100 every single time you share the gospel, how many times today would you have done it? Be honest. 10, 20, 50, 100 times?
Probably with everybody I come in contact with.
As many as I could.
As many people as I could.
As many as I could possibly reach out to.
Wow. As many as I can get a hold of, 100.
I would have about $1 billion right now.
Enough to buy me a new car.
I'd probably do it several times.
Probably a lot more than once a week. A lot more.
As many as I could, like 1,000 times.
It would probably be more. I hate to say it, but yeah, it probably would be more.
So it sometimes would convict us about like when what motivates us to share the gospel should be that we love God and we love others. And sometimes that we actually need a different motivation to motivate us to share the gospel. But those two should be our two motivations, that we love God and we love people, in following with the first and second greatest commandment. Now, there are some other considerations, because we talked about how Charles Spurgeon said, have you no wish for others to be saved, then you're not saved yourself, be sure of that. Well, that might not be all of us, because some of us do understand that we want to share the gospel to someone, but we might feel some hesitant to actually share the gospel. Some might think that you're not qualified to evangelize. Some might be afraid to do such a thing. I was afraid when I first started doing this. Or maybe you think that there's no opportunity for you to do that, or that you don't feel equipped. And maybe there are some other considerations. And I would like to tackle that that everyone should be qualified to evangelize. And I would like to look at a certain passage about Paul. And this is in 1 Corinthians 2:1-5. This is where Paul talks about the qualifications of evangelism. I'll explain later on. When I came to you, brothers, I did not come with eloquence or superior wisdom, as I proclaimed to you the testimony about God. For I had resolved to know nothing while I was with you except Jesus Christ, and Him crucified. I came to you in weakness and fear, and with much trembling. My message and my preaching were not with wise and persuasive words, but with a demonstration of the Spirit's power, so that your faith might not rest on men's wisdom, but on God's power. So, does anyone see any qualifications needed to evangelize? I'll list them out for you. Here are your qualifications. You should have no elegance, no superior wisdom, resolve to know nothing, in weakness and fear with much trembling, no persuasive words. If you have those, congratulations, you're qualified to be an evangelist. But notice what he says in the very end. A demonstration of the Spirit's power, so that your faith might not rest on men's wisdom, but on God's power. When we are called to evangelize, we're called to be faithful. We're not the ones converting them. If you think that we're the ones converting them,